So I'd like to, before digging into material, talk about some habits for success. By now, we've developed several different strategies for solving various types of problems, and so it's important to get familiar with the strategies that are introduced in class. You should know why they work. If you just try to memorize the strategies on their own, it's easy to eventually lose your memory of how to do things. But if you analyze the strategy to go, oh, this is why this works. If you know why it works, then you're more likely to recall the strategies when you need them. So instead of trying to, here's the other thing is a lot of the strategies, to be fair, have lots of little details to them, which certainly matter. But try to look at the overall strategy with its many steps or requirements or whatever. And instead of trying to memorize the entire strategy, try to identify the key step. Now, I've tried to do that so far for you. I've tried to identify what I think of as the key step, but you might disagree with me and think that there's another aspect of it that if you memorize a certain phrase within the strategy, maybe that's going to be more helpful for you than the one that I've identified for you. And so you should go with your little bit of identify what's key to memorizing it for you. So, for example, for me, equation with fractions is just something nice and that short for me. Equation with fractions, multiply by LCD. Of course, the actual strategy is much longer. There's lots of aspects to it, step one, step two, and so on and so forth. And, I don't want to get into that. I want to talk about how it's important to say, in the situation of equation with fractions, the strategy involves something about multiplying by LCD on both sides. Right, so that's the key thing. I would say you should create some flashcards to practice the strategies. Describe the task and the situation on the front, for example, solving equations with fractions, and then on the back, put the steps of the method, or maybe a key phrase like multiply by LCD, or if you want to put the entire strategy on the back, that's good too. The idea would be then to look at the front of the flashcards, right? And then see if you can, at minimum, identify your key phrase that lets you remember how that strategy goes, and then look on the back of the card to see if that's what you have. And then to really understand, to really, sometimes what happens is people might even know reactively, instinctively what the strategies are, but then don't even see when a problem comes up that aha, here's a problem where that strategy applies. So what you should do really to really practice this is for each strategy, I would suggest that you create several math problems of your own. Like don't even look amongst the examples I've done or the web work or the book. Like really just try to literally make your own problem. Make a problem where that strategy can be applied. I think it's important in a math class for success to develop curiosity. Always be willing to ask why. To ask, does this work? Ask yourself, why does this work? Why is this true? And if you're unsure or you're just kind of confused about a step, always be willing to ask me why. Commit to working on really, truly understanding how the math works. Right? I want you to have all of the tools to fully understand the math. Focusing on just how the examples are done alone won't work. I mean, we have examples, but we also have strategies and warnings and clarifications and examples of why this works and details about notation to look at. And all of these things all come together, right? You'll also note that in algebra class, things are actually going to work out more successful if you think geometrically. Very often, it's helpful to think geometrically. Please know that it's always okay to ask questions. Learners should have questions. If you literally had no questions about any of the material and you already knew it, why would you be in this math class? You'd be in the next math class, right? So look, it's okay not to know, right? It's okay to not know, but it's not okay to not ask. If you're confused about something, ask in office hours. If it seems like there's a lot of questions you have and you'd rather have a one-on-one office hour, let's schedule something outside of the normal office hours. I still need to leave the normal office hour times open for anybody to drop in, but you've got to get your questions answered from me or from one of the Murphy Learning Center tutors, so on and so forth. You've got to ask. It's not okay to not ask, and I don't want you to think, well, I just don't like equations that have fractions in them. Let's work on it, right? Let's get to a point where that strategy is understood. Why does it work? Is understood. That so that and then also every time you see an equation with fractions, you're like, aha, here's a strategy I need to use, and let's practice it a couple times together, and to get to a point where you're like, yes, I own this strategy. Finally, never give up. Be patient with yourself. Look, everything that's new takes time to learn. Everything that's new takes time to master. And I know that a lot of the ways that this algebra class is shaped, I'm asking you to do things perhaps in different ways than you're used to doing things, but just to try to build things for the future. And that all is going to take work. Unlearning bad habits is going to take work. Um, if there's bad habits like kind of mistakes, let's say, that's going to take work. And sometimes you have good habits, or habits of ways of solving a certain problem type that just takes longer. And so uh, sometimes considerably longer than what I would like, especially for the fact that the problems are going to grow in size throughout the semester. So look, all of these sorts of things, whether it's misconceptions that need to be undone and unlearned, or whether it's something you know that works, but learning something faster is going to be key. All of these things are going to cause some angst and struggle in the beginning. That's normal. That's natural. I don't want you to ever look at those stumbling blocks as a sign to say, "Oh, I just can't do math." It's just I want you to think, this is new. It's going to take a little bit of work. It's going to take some getting used to, and it's going to take good practice. It's going to take really decided, really really definitive practice to make things work. And it's like working muscles. It's going to take some time to get there, and that's okay. Just never give up. Be patient with yourself.